What's funny about rappers asking about if they can curse or not on shows? I was like, don't y'all like write? I thought you could write without cursing. But then again, listening to some of today's music period, some can't and some can. But I'm like, wow, it's just.
I would say everybody that's asked us, can they curse on the show? They don't really curse that much afterwards.
Not
like
that
they
many people
literally
curse.
be like, "Oh, can we curse?" I'm like, "Yeah, go for it."
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to, and then they be like, oh, "Okay," and they might say 2 words.
That's pretty much it. Because they're thinking about their parents.
Except for that there are some people that have gone in, but no, nobody's really cursed that much on the show.
The most that is probably cursed was Lenora speaking about.
I was trying to throw her out there to the bus again, but
I was gonna throw her to the bus.
Lenora
is our
cursing.
unofficial. She's our unofficial sister.
Cursing.
Bad.
She can't be our unofficial sister. My mom would be upset with that all that level of cursing. Hi, Mom. Facebook. The Facebook. I was on a conversation on Facebook earlier, and they were saying, like, spaghetti can't be a side. Is spaghetti a side, or is it a main dish? Our grandmother says it's a side.
It's a side.
So I was like, yeah, I didn't know this was a thing.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yes.
No, it's not. It's a taco.
Okay, there we go.
It's a taco.
You can't call a hot dog a taco. First
Yes,
of all,
you can.
Okay.
You can call it a taco.
All right, then.
Black and ugly as ever. Stay Houston down to my socks. It's your boy. Nah. What's my name again? Carlton Banks. Also, Fashion Nova Casanova. Also, I'm sorry. No, I'm Fashion Nova Hova. Yeah. Ding.
Fashion Nova Casanova works, though.
Nah. What's it called? I don't even remember who I am anymore. Oh, yeah, I'm Carlton Banks. Carlton with a K, B-A-N, triple X. Carlton with a K, B-A-N, triple X. That's what I want the ding. I want it down. Carlton with a K, B-A-N, triple X.
And that's where the ding would go.
Carlton with a
Man,
K, B-A-N, triple X. Ring. Carlton with a K, B-A-N, triple X. There we go.
There
Got
you
it.
go.
And over to my whatever side it is today. You said my right.
Oh, okay, that's us. That's us.
Co-hosts.
That's me.
My brother over here waving.
Somebody
at
was
people.
waving. I was waving at somebody at the studio, not the studio audience. Not the
Yeah.
audience. We don't have a studio.
We don't
audience
have a studio audience
yet. All right then. So
Just Devon.
I don't know what's up with the gunshots. Like why?
Because I like it.
Okay, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. Let's
It's a cannon.
the cannon. Okay.
Cannon.
Let's get to our guest today.
Yeah.
Who's our guest today? Our guest today is, you can go to introduce him. I'll let you handle that.
Usually I go into a long tirade of doing guests. You're
You
so
ain't got no
like
long
quiet.
tirade?
I don't.
He's a quiet man. We got Damien Randle.
What's up, y'all?
Damien Randle, who
There we go.
like
Does a lot.
that's the thing.
Like, does a lot.
Trying to do that, but doing quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to talk about that.
He does
'cause
so
did a
much
lot.
that there's a half he
And I
doesn't
got-
even talk about.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a whole
man
other
of
side.
few words. That's like, because I told him, now look, Damien and I have filmed or recorded another podcast, and I was under the impression that Damien just didn't want to talk about himself. Like, I was like, hey man, if you ever want to come on the show and do a little thing, but I mean, you seem like, he goes, oh no, I'll talk about myself. I ain't got no problem with that. I was like, oh, okay.
I just don't do it on an unsolicited basis. I don't just insert myself in the shit.
That's good.
Okay.
And yes, I was the person who was asking about cursing ahead of time.
Yes.
That was you.
No. Actually, I mean,
What are you talking
A
about?
number of people asked that,
I'm one
though.
of them.
Literally every single person. that's
Everybody says
Every single one.
like it's like old school TV, like we going live.
Oh, the radio.
Like it's
They'll be on the Breakfast Club. Can we curse up here?
was like-
Did you hear Ray J? You can definitely do it. Okay.
I don't know why people ask if we
Yeah.
curse on the Breakfast Club. I'm like, have you watched the Breakfast Club? You
I'm
can
like,
curse.
you can curse.
You
They'll
can.
bleep it out if they
You
need
can.
to that
I'm
day.
about to say they'll fix it.
They have a professional bleeper out there.
I'm about to say they'll fix
Yeah,
it in
do it.
post.
I'm like, they'll do it in post. They have a professional bleeper.
He said they'll do it in post.
Sometimes they're a little off, but they'll get it in there.
Sometimes.
And that's the spice of life.
So yeah, this is it's weird for me to be on this side of it. Usually I'm the one.
You're always.
I'm usually the one behind the controls,
Really?
watching all the tomfoolery. Yeah.
Don't you?
Lately, you've been the one behind the controls, but we are also talking about you used to be in front of. We're talking about. I mean,
Okay.
you headlining shows in Prague. I mean, it's like that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
So you were definitely at one point in front, and then you made the decision to step back.
Oh, yeah.
Which do you prefer?
It depends. It really depends. once I start doing one, I kind of miss the other, if that makes any
Really?
sense.
Okay.
The one thing about being I don't know where you want to start with it, but I'll just speak in generalities. One thing about being a musician is
Deep sigh.
deep side. And this is just real talk. You have to come to a point where you realize that you may not be as in demand anymore as you were at some point. And it's time for you to step back and figure out what else you can do in and around that. I think what happens with a lot of people is, like, if someone wants to be a rapper, they will rap until someone else tells them it's time to step away. I know that we got to a point where the demand for our music wasn't as high as it was at some point, and we said, you know what? Let's take this time to diversify what it is that we do so that we're never caught out there in a situation where someone else is telling us when to step away.
And so let's back
I
up then,
understand.
because you said you don't know where we want to start.
Yep.
We want to start at the beginning,
Okay?
at the very, very beginning. So when you say we, you were referring to,
My rap group, K-Otix.
all right, and let's back up before then.
Okay.
Because you didn't start out in a rap group.
Man. I mean, I've, back on June 18th,
I'm about to say.
19.
Wow.
Where are you from?
Sound like Bill Cosby.
I'm from Sunnyside, Houston, Texas.
Sunnyside,
There you go.
Houston,
Born and
Texas.
raised South Side proud.
All right.
Enemy of the North Side. Self-proclaimed enemy of the North Side.
That's old school Houston for real.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Went to Law Elementary, and then went to Askew Elementary for Vanguard, and went to Lanier Middle School, and then went to Lamar High School.
Now, are you at what point in this career, up to high school, are you deciding I want to get into rap? Are you even affected by rap, or like anything?
Man, up until high school, I was going to be a comic book artist,
Really? Okay. You know what? That's okay.
and then rap ruined my life.
How did it ruin your
What
life?
wait. Before we even get at that, so let's get on the comic books then.
Oh,
I would say
man.
you're talking about the comic book artist. Like,
Yeah.
what comics were you looking at, and what were you trying to draw? What were you trying to get into?
Comic books. This is the funny part. Out of all the conversations I have with people about music and movies and everything else that they know me for, comic books are really my first love.
Okay.
My mother took me to a comic book store when I was 8 years old. And back then, they sold comics on a newsstand. I was buying mostly X-Men comic books, like G.I. Joe and Transformer comic books, Superman, Spider-Man. And I would just draw. I wouldn't trace, but I would look at the picture in the book and just draw it freehand on a larger scale, just to practice my forms. And then up until I said high school, up until middle school, I was really going to be a comic book artist. I was I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of cold with it. I was pretty good with it.
Okay.
And then a friend of mine introduced me to Eric B. and Rakim. And
What grade was this?
this was, I'm about to date myself.
Yeah, you are.
7th grade.
7th grade. Eric B. and Rakim.
Sixth grade. Sixth
Okay.
grade. Eric B. and Rakim. Changed my life. The following year, I was introduced to NWA. And that
Change your life again.
changed my life even further. And I was like, I really, I'd known of rap before then, but those really gripped me. And I just started diving more and more into music, more into KRS-One. By the time I got out of middle school and into high school, it was really like A Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Pete Rock, Ghetto Boys, Too Short, Far Side. Like the entire spectrum, that we'll call it, of hip hop. I really got into that, and actually through high school I was a dancer. I wasn't even trying to rap. I was actually a dancer, and we won the talent show in senior year. And but during the same time, my boy Mike, who I rap with in K-Otix, before we even thought about doing anything, we had a class when I was in my senior year. He was in his junior year. It was I don't know if anyone remembers this. This is an old computer language called Pascal that
Yes.
nobody uses.
Nobody uses it
Yeah,
anymore.
not anymore.
But what that class allowed us to do was it allowed us to send messages to each other, much like the way email works. And so we would send like little bars to each other just little hot bars to each other. Like, ah. And we would spend the entire class. We almost failed the class because we would basically just battle each other in class, and there was really nothing else. But like that's what we did the entire year.
Oh, ahead of the time, battling electronically.
Just key styling on fools.
Key styling, key styling.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so then I graduated that year, and sometime that summer, Mike gave me a call. He goes by Big Mun professionally. He gave me a call. Said that he got approached by someone who was looking to manage a rap group. And she asked him if he was in a group, and he was like, yes, I am. Completely lying. So he called me that day. It was like, hey, so this lady wants to manage a rap group. I told her I was in a group. You feel like being in a group? It's like, I don't have anything else going on. I'm about to start college in the fall. Sure, why not? And we we signed a handwritten contract on legal paper, written in pencil. And
Pencil.
Yeah, I remember her name to this day. She was a medical assistant who was trying to get into music, and she signed us up for a talent show. It was a citywide talent show, and we got robbed out of first place by someone who sang a gospel song. The girl could not sing.
But gospel will
The
make
Kanye
you win.
West thing.
It's
Gospel
like,
makes you
it's
win.
like it's like amateur night at the Apollo.
That's exactly
They
it
don't
is.
boo anybody if you sing gospel.
You can't boo the Lord.
You sure can.
You can't do it.
And we got shut down. So we got second place, which was like losing us.
You should have done like Yang. You should have ended your verse with Jesus.
I could have.
Then just drop the mic.
Well, she went after us.
But you weren't prepared. Yeah,
I
she went
wasn't
after.
ready. I wasn't ready. That was our first lesson. That was our first lesson. And really, we were just going to be a group just for that one talent show, to be honest.
Did you already have the name?
We had a name at the time.
What was the name?
The first name of the group was Guess Who.
Okay.
And because this was the early 90s, we spelled it GESS space HOO.
Okay.
Thankfully, we learned that there was a rock group called The Guess Who. I think they were from like the 60s or 70s, and we decided to change the name. I'm glad we did not stick with that.
All right.
And eventually we came up with the K-Otix a couple years later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went from Guess Who to K-Otix.
Yep.
And then y'all are this was supposed to be a one-time thing.
Yep. One-time thing. This was like 92. But after the talent show, after we suffered that horrifying defeat, in the name of Jesus, we decided that let's go ahead and let's just keep writing stuff. And we actually knew a couple guys from high school who were signed to a very small, now defunct label called New Style Records.
Damn.
A group called Satin Smooth. Do your Googles, do your YouTubes, you'll find them on there.
Satin Smooth.
SAT space N space Smooth.
I'm glad you spelled it because
Yeah.
people like Satin Smooth.
It's like
okay.
satin it. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Any group from the 90s, you
have to
spell
misspell
it
the
out.
name.
No,
You was like,
Because phonetically, it's not gonna
you're
work.
like you gotta change that up real quick. Okay, so you signed.
We did not sign.
Oh, you didn't sign with you just knew Satin Smooth and they were signed.
Yes.
Okay.
We let me stress that. I can't stress that enough. We did not sign with New Style for good reason.
Didn't.
But they introduced us to another young whippersnapper, up-and-coming producer who was looking to get paired up with a group who now goes by the R. And that the story of meeting him was kind of funny as well. I don't know if you guys have met him before, the R, the producer.
No.
Okay, so let me paint the picture. So we're at a at the Satin Smooth's producer's apartment, and we're somewhere on the southwest side in the apartment. And while we're waiting for this new producer to show up, their producer, he's stashing trash bags of weed in the closet. He has another closet full of guns for whatever reason. And, it's just one of those things that we're just sitting around playing PlayStation or something like that. There's a knock on the door, and a little white kid with a flannel shirt comes in. And we're like, okay, who's this dude? And they're like, this is my boy. This is the producer, Russell. Like, oh, okay.
Didn't expect this.
What kind of shit is he producing? You know, okay. And he pulled out some, he pulled out some tracks, and we were like, oh. He was very much on at the time, he was very much kind of like on a DJ Premier vibe.
Yeah.
And it was very good, very banging. And we just sat there for hours just like freestyling over his beats. And we were like, let's go. Let's rock to it. A couple weeks later, we went to his house up in Aldine. And we recorded a couple songs. And the rest is history.
Now, and not you saying this is like 92?
So 92 is when we started. We actually met the R probably early 93.
Early 93.
Yeah.
So let's, for the listeners and trying to get the soundscape, what is, because we're in Houston.
Yep.
What's the Houston sound at this time?
Here's what's crazy about it. The Houston sound at the time, especially as far as hip hop, pretty much spanned the spectrum. Over the years, there have been, it's grown into distinct lanes. If that
Okay,
makes any sense.
that's kind of what I want to hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead, elaborate on that.
But at the time, in the early to mid 90s, a lot of what you hear, a lot of the people that you see were really running in packs. So it wasn't unusual. See, a lot of people identified our sound as more of an East Coast sound. That's how they identified it. But we were also running with people like K Reno, who was also running with people like, I was going to name a bunch of people that don't really exist in that context anymore. But with a group like us who was described as more of an East Coast sound, like we've opened for the Ghetto Boys before.
Yeah.
At Studio 9.9 and got, a pretty open reception from the crowd there. Like there's no distinction between, one genre of hip hop versus the other. So it was very undivided at the time, and it was actually a very supportive environment, so to speak.
Okay.
So you didn't have a lot of these divisions or categorizations that you have now, which is one thing that I know a lot of people who've come around from the late 90s on never got a chance to experience. They've always assumed that there have been two sides of the stone as far as Houston rap is concerned. But everyone used to run really in a pack. Like the R, who used to produce for us, also used to produce for Fisu. He's also submitted tracks to like Street Military. Like
okay.
Like it was very inclusive at the time.
So what do you think? I guess with that, what kind of started happening? Was it just one part started getting popular, and then things just? Did the outside world define it, or did we define ourselves? How'd it go?
The Telecommunications Act of, if I'm not mistaken, 1996 changed a lot of it because of the way that radio worked. Following that, radio could monopolize the playing of music the way that they wanted to. That's a very simplified version of it. But radio stations were more incented now to play popular music rather than playing a variety of music. So if you go back to around 96, 97, that's where it changed and you started getting the saturation in radio play from the same playlist of 10 people. And once that happened, radio at the time still heavily influenced what people listened to and what was in demand for a lot of people. Because just to give you an example, like a few years before, I remember when I was working at Astroworld, and I was right next to a spot that played music all day at Astroworld, and they would play 97.9, and you would hear Ghetto Boys followed by A Tribe Called Quest, followed by NWA. Like there was just a mixture of things. Come 96, 97, you had the same 10 artists on.
Okay.
And for a lot of people, especially Houston has always been very impressionable in terms of people from Houston. I hate to say it, people from Houston tend to follow what they feel is already popular. That's happened a lot. And a lot of times at the expense of local talent. So they would say if these 10 people that are being played all day are the people that are being played, then that's who I need to pay attention to. And it just so happened that they tended to favor what was, I guess, a more predominant mainstream sound at the time, or whoever had bigger pockets to get play on the radio.
Because I would say, like, from our perspective, we're coming back to Houston about
93.
We're coming back to Houston in 93. And shortly thereafter, because before when we were here, like, when our cousins would give us tapes of the Ghetto Boys.
Easy.
We got a couple of things. But I know when we did get here and we're starting to enter high school, Houston seemed real West Coast.
Yeah, Houston was
like
West
everything,
Coast.
all of a sudden, I was like, it was a very